Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Brett Breaks Things. We are in our second week of dry runs. We are going live Monday. We're going live Monday. Um, we do have some traffic on the website, a little traffic on the GoFundMe, a little traffic on the TikTok and the Instagram and the Facebook. We're gaining a little bit of ground here. Some of you guys are finding out we're going to be back on the air. Um, Spoke to Randy. She's super excited about it. She is all in. She's 100% behind me, and I can't thank her enough for her support. So we're going to go live next week, Monday. I'm taking a little trip over the weekend. I have to go to Washington, D.C. How about that? How about that for timing? I get to go and be in the cradle of our political landscape, where everything takes place, where all of this is happening. I get to be there. And I get to go see monuments dedicated to the greatest leaders in our democracy's history. I played audio of Mike Johnson touting Trump as the most powerful, most successful, and most respected president in our country's history, and he got laughed at on the House floor, laughed at, audibly laughed at. I'm going to visit monuments dedicated to the actual most successful, respected leaders in our country's history. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm probably going to shoot some videos, put some stuff on TikTok, Instagram, kind of let people know I'm out there. I'm really, really looking forward to it. My stepdaughter's got a robotics competition. Her local team made the national finals up in Maryland. So I'm going to go up there and spend some time, and then we're going to launch this thing. And I'm super excited about it. I'm going to open today's show. We're going to kind of give you a little breakdown of where we are with the Ukrainian conflict and Donnie's yo-yoing in terms of his relationship with Putin. The give and the take, mostly the taking by Putin, and Trump's emotional roller coaster that is an effect of Putin not showing him the respect that Mike Johnson feels he should be shown. Donnie's ego really can't handle a lot of this, but I did want to just remind people of where we kind of were in terms of Donnie's negotiations with Russia, in terms of the Ukrainian conflict. I wanted to show you this map again. A couple of people who saw the show were like, man, that map really opened my eyes a little bit. This is the map in question here. The red is the area that's been taken by Russia up to this point in the conflict. The Crimean region, Luhansk and Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson, and parts of Kharkiv have all been taken by Russia, occupied. It's theirs now. And right now, Ukraine is having a hard time taking it back. Strikes have begun in the Russian controlled areas, strikes actually from the Ukrainians just before we pulled a lot of our funding, and I'll get to that in a second. We were, not us, but Ukraine was launching strikes into Russian-controlled territory. A little bit of a counteroffensive was beginning, but that is halted. That counteroffensive has not been going well lately, and Putin has been pushing. Okay, a lot of it is due to the seaport in Odessa. That's a large port in that region. Lots of money, lots of volume, very, very valuable to Russia and Ukraine. That seems to me to be the crown jewel of this whole offensive. If Putin can't have it all, he needs at least that, and he's very close to taking it. I did want to break down a little bit of a timeline, though, of kind of where we're at. When Trump took office, his first phone call with Putin, once he was president, his first phone call happened on February 12th, and negotiations began. And I think Putin, over the next few weeks after that, started to get into Trump's ear a little bit. And I said yesterday, I think the whole point of Putin's pitch was, let me take what I need to take to secure somewhat of a victory here. And then when I'm satiated, I will come to the table on a ceasefire, and I will give you the credit. And I do believe a lot of that I believe that is why we heard a lot of this assurances that once we're satisfied, Russia is satisfied, they will come to the table, and Donnie will be able to get credit for ending this war, which is why he campaigned on
End
this.
the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Yes, I
How
can.
would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well.
I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long. I will get the war ended. I'll stop all of those lives from being wasted and lost. And there'll be no more bombing of Ukraine. There'll be no more bombing of Russia.
No more bombing of Russia. And that's what he was referring to, was the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Russians were being bombed. Okay? Up to that point, we had approximately given Ukraine $180 billion, I apologize, in aid. On March 3rd, okay, so February 12th, they started talking. The Ukrainian counteroffensive was going well. Then all of a sudden on March 3rd, Trump pulls United States funding to Ukraine, just like that. And there was some international pushback on that. A lot of our allies in the EU, and obviously Zelensky, were on edge. That was not a good trend in the negotiations. That's not where they saw this going. And there was a lot of pushback. And there was some pushback in the States. Some people in the polls were showing some people in the States didn't quite like that. Of course, the right did. Far right conservatives were all about it, right? Pull back our money. Why are you spending that much money of our money on Ukraine? This isn't our conflict. But that didn't go well for the most part in this country. For the most part, people supported what we were doing in Ukraine. And against that pressure, he reinstated a little bit of military aid, but most importantly, military intelligence. Okay, because that's the big one. The EU, they're giving money. Okay, the EU is giving money. I told you the EU gave $132 billion. Germany, $50 billion. United Kingdom, $1.6 billion. Norway, $85 billion in their Norwegian kroner. Canada, $305 million. Other countries were giving Ukraine aid. So it wasn't so much the money. It was our advanced military intelligence that Ukraine craved to stay in this fight, to actually execute this counteroffensive. So we did reinstate a little bit of military aid. We oversaw the use of some of our weapons coming from our EU allies, how to use them, and of course the military intelligence. And then shortly after that, he did approve $50 million in money, a little bit more money. I mean, obviously it's just a pittance compared to the 180 billion we had given them, but we did. On May 19th, there was the second phone call. Okay, the second phone call on May 19th, and that's the phone call where Trump tried to lure Putin to Turkey with Erdogan, Medvedev, Zelensky. They were all going to meet in Turkey to talk ceasefire. And after that phone call, Trump thought that was going to happen. That was his plan. And it didn't work out quite that way. And this was the beginning of the problem for Don, because this one was on the world stage. He went and he touted all of the progress being made on that phone call. And he talked about the ceasefire talks in Turkey. And then the cool kid didn't show up.
I know nothing about a delegation. I haven't even checked. Look, nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying. Thank you. You're going to land right now.
Yeah, that's Donnie doing damage control on his ego. Putin had tentatively agreed, hey, maybe I'll show up to Turkey and I'll talk peace talks with you. That didn't show up. Sent his do-boy, Medvedev. Sent his do-boy out there to talk to Zelensky and Rubio. And then shortly after he snubbed that party.
Скажи, как открывай экран, я ему даю воду.
right, you get the idea.
In the very beginning, during the first explosion,
I'm going to cut it right there because I'm running up against the break already. That was a bombing of Kyiv right after Putin snubbed the peace party at Erdogan's house. Obviously, Don looks weak there, right? Donnie looks weak. He knew he looked weak, but not as weak as he was prepared to look shortly after that. Because he thought he was making ground again. He thought he was gaining ground again with Putin. And the Ukrainian and Russian sides were talking. They hadn't met. Nobody important really met. Trump didn't go anywhere to meet. Zelensky didn't meet with Putin, but the two sides did agree on a prisoner swap. 303 troops were swapped a little bit after that. 303 troops were swapped. This was on May 25th, Memorial Day weekend, and 1,000 prisoners were exchanged. And Trump ran out to the nearest mic he could find once this happened, ran right out to a microphone and said, quote, "Congratulations to both sides on the negotiation. This could lead to something big." He's excited. Something he did was viewed as positive on the world stage concerning this conflict. His side brokered this giant prisoner swap. And then the night of, right after that, another bombing of Kyiv, plus 29 other cities, a massive drone strike. A fleet of drones is how it was described. Now, the Ukrainian military shot down a good chunk, 70% maybe of these drones, but they struck. They damaged residential areas. Scores of people were injured, some casualties. And there's no other way to see that as a middle finger to Donnie. You think you're making ground? You think you're going to go in front of a mic and act like I'm malleable to your influence, Donnie, Mr. Dealmaker? Here's how malleable I am. And he bombs 30 cities. Donnie got upset.
Can you provide us an update on Russia and Ukraine as well?
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
He doesn't like that. He doesn't like that at all. Last show I told you, not just MAGA, America. Are you ready to hate the Russians again? The rhetoric's ramping up. I'm going to give you an example of that when we come out of the break. The rhetoric on both sides is starting to ramp up. This is not going the way of ceasefire. This is not going the way of peace talks. It never was going to be that for Putin. He hadn't gotten enough. He hadn't wet his beak enough. And now Donnie is looking stupid because of it.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things.
Voted to allow
Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
No, I'm not saying it's a good thing to hate the Russians, right? We shouldn't be hating anybody. I am saying it's a good thing to keep the optics correct on who's to blame here. Now, in that timeline, I kind of blew past the Zelensky meeting in the White House where J.D. Vance demanded fealty. Why don't you thank Trump? Thank Trump for what? Exactly. Cutting our funding? His inflammatory rhetoric towards our country? The lies about how this war got started? Not taking full account of who started this war and why? I mean, he's still not even prepared. Nobody in the Trump administration is prepared to call Putin a dictator. None of them will say it. Even though Marco Rubio in 2017 sat in a hearing demanding that somebody call Putin a dictator. He got on his moral high horse and he was so incensed that nobody would call Putin a dictator. Fast forward to this year, he himself will not call Putin a dictator now that he's the one who's in charge of wrangling these talks. I mean, we know Donnie's not the administrative type, okay? Donnie's not going to take the initiative. It's on Rubio right now. He's the one that's flying out to Turkey. He's the one that's getting shoved in front of a camera to make statements about where we are in the negotiations. It's his neck in the noose in terms of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict and America's involvement in it and America's possible involvement in it stopping. But that rhetoric is starting to change. With that Donnie sounder there, he doesn't know what's happened to Putin. Nothing happened to Putin. Putin's been Putin the whole time. His goals hadn't changed, Don. It's you. You're the malleable one. You're the one fluctuating, oscillating, dictated by your emotions, your ego, how offended you are from one moment to the next. Okay, Putin hasn't changed. You've changed your position again and again and again. He came out on Truth Social. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened in Russia, and I mean really bad. He's playing with fire. That's not dangerous rhetoric at all. So I ask you, America, are you ready to hate the Russians again? Are you ready for Red Dawn? Are you ready for Rocky IV again? When he talks about really bad things could happen, there's a number of things he could be referring to, okay? Because even though he has time and again spoken out against NATO, wants the U.S. to distance itself from NATO involvement and the running of NATO, even though we are obviously by far the most influential member of it, is he talking about possible NATO involvement in this conflict? We know that a couple of rockets were fired errantly from Russia into Poland months ago. For a moment, the world stood up and looked at that and wondered what was next, and then nothing happened. Poland being a NATO nation, okay, protected by NATO, nothing happened there. But is Donnie threatening possible NATO action? I don't know. Time will tell on that. Now, the U.S. and its European allies have been leveling sanctions against Russia throughout this conflict. What sanctions? Major Russian banks have been disconnected from SWIFT, which is a global financial messaging service. His assets, Putin's Russian central bank's assets to the tune of $300 billion have been frozen. Oligarchs, business elites, and their families, all having their assets frozen. In the energy sector, bans on Russian oil, coal imports, bans on Russian crude, petroleum products. Those are sanctions that have been leveled already. Could Donnie be talking extra tough about more sanctions? Maybe. That would be the next logistical step. That is the politically feasible and generally accepted next step with rhetoric like this. But when's the last time Donnie's been generally reasonable? So this honestly could mean anything. And the Kremlin, it had words for Donnie after Donnie had words for them. Medvedev, Putin's do-boy, more specifically his deputy chair of the Security Council, said regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, I only know of one really bad thing: World War III. That's how you ramp up rhetoric, baby. Take a note, Donnie. You want to ramp your rhetoric up? You want to get the cockles up? You want to get the goosebumps going? You want to get the hairs on the back of people's necks standing up in attention? That's how you do it. World War III. You want to talk tough, Donnie? That's tough talk. And in their eyes, in Russia's eyes, they're basically saying, just let us finish our work here. We understand the threat of NATO versus our interests. We understand there is a wall a NATO wall that we're about to push up against. If we were to take all of Ukraine, there would be nowhere else to go that is not NATO protected, or at least one of the countries that is being considered to be in NATO and is an official NATO ally. There are ally countries. These ally countries are usually currently in the process of amending the way their country works, amending their government to conform to NATO guidelines, to NATO scrutiny. This is the standard your government needs to be at in terms of corruption and election integrity to be a NATO nation. And there are NATO allies in the area that aren't technically NATO nations, but believe me, there will be NATO action if you should incur on those lands as well. So I think Putin and Russia, they understand that all of Ukraine, not only is that a dubious proposition for them, but probably untenable, the way the war's been going since 2022. So what they're saying is, just let us take what we need to take, the port of Odessa, and then we'll come to the table and talk. If you don't let us finish our business, we're talking World War III, baby. How tough you want to talk, Trump? How tough you want to get? And then on May 27th, after the renewed drone strikes, right after Trump's comments, the summer offensive has begun. Because don't forget, Russia has allies of their own in North Korea, Iran, some African nations, Syria, Libya, Central African Republic, China. They have their own allies. They are donating troops to the Russian cause. They are donating weapons to the Russian cause. They are making available their own military intelligence to the Russians. And that summer offensive, 100,000 troops along the Ukrainian border that had been amassed just before the May 19th phone call, with a concentration of 67,000 troops in the Sumy region, 30,000 new troops per month joining the Russian side, that has begun. Donnie wants to talk tough. Not that we take him seriously, but let's get this party started. Let's start taking what we can take before we have to actually seriously start to talk ceasefire with the NATO allies. It's not so much about Donnie's tough talk. It's about the global community in general will soon have had enough. So let this party begin. Let's get it started. And the summer offensive did begin. That Truth Social tweet by Don, that is just weakness pouring out of this man. It's just weak. And Russia highlighted just how weak your talk is compared to ours. Russia's going to continue to push. And Ukraine is going to continue to fight, regardless of Donnie's rhetoric. Hopefully, we will have renewed peace talks soon. Because the next step in this conflict, as it reaches its apex, is going to get really, really ugly.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
All right. Welcome back. We're gonna keep it Oscar Mike. We're gonna keep it on the move because we got a lot to get to. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that trip to Washington. I'm really looking forward to it. I've never been to DC. If anybody's been to DC and you've got any suggestions for me, hit up my Instagram, hit up my TikTok, leave a message on one of my videos, hit up my Facebook. Leave a message there for me. Give me a suggestion. What should I go do? What should I go see?
Two, I'll tell you, Brett, because I was there within the last few years. The World War II Memorial is really awesome. Also, the Korean War Memorial. I think that's what it's called, but that's really powerful. Very moving, and yeah, take time to go visit those two, and you'll be, you'll definitely be grateful. Also, if you have a chance to stop by the Arlington, the cemetery there, you'll be blown away by the size of it, and you can't help but be, your breath be taken away by standing on such hallowed ground.
Absolutely. Man, and it just upsets me. Obviously, I could point to all the distasteful things about Trump, pre-presidency and during and post and during again. But God, as you talk about that, and I think about the reverence, I think about the sacrifice, and you mention how many there are. God, I can't help think about the suckers and losers comment out of this guy. I just can't. I come back to it. And it just amazes me that he did not lose more support from the military in this country. Talking about John McCain, I like people who weren't captured. And the suckers and losers comment, it's really sad, and it really upsets me that, that's the type of thing that's okay now. If you hate who I hate, I'll let you get away with stuff like that. That seems to be the overarching sentiment. Sometimes it's, if you're good for my wallet, I'll let you get away with stuff like that. Whatever it may be, he gets away with stuff like that. And he gets away with other stuff too. He gets away with really weird pardons. And that's what I wanted to get to in this segment. A lot of pardoning going on. A pardon party. Now, I wanted to start with being fair. Yes, Joe Biden pardoned his son and others. Hunter Biden had 9 tax evasion charges and 3 gun charges, illegally purchasing a firearm while under the influence of narcotics. 3 charges there, 9 federal tax evasion charges. And he pardoned him. Am I saying that he should have pardoned him? I'm not saying that. I am saying, and I don't have any children of my own, I have 2 beautiful stepdaughters. Am I saying I would pardon one of my stepdaughters in a similar situation? I am going to say that. If I had the power to essentially save their effective future, I would take it. And if you're on the right and you're listening to me, I know there's hundreds of you, thousands of you flocking to Brett Breaks Things. I know that already. So I'm talking to you real quick. Just in your heart, I don't want you to say it out loud or argue with anybody actively. Just in your heart, if you have a child and your child's future was in jeopardy to the level that Hunter's was, whether it was justified or not, I personally, you want to throw the book at this guy for breaking laws that he broke, then do it. That's what the law is all about. That's what it's all about. He did pay back the taxes, but he was still facing the charges. He paid him back. And there was no way he could go back on the gun charges. Nothing he could do for that other than take his punishment. But ask yourselves, would you do the same for your child? Not do you think it is right, but do you understand it? And I think many of you in your heart, not forced to admit it to a libtard, would agree that you would do a similar thing. You would pardon your son or your daughter. Other pardons by Biden? He pardoned Fauci and Milley and the entire January 6th committee for anything that may be leveled against them. It was a proactive pardon. Do I think it was right? In terms of what? Do I think it was a correct application of the pardon power? Yeah, it's murky. It's super murky. I don't have a hard stance on that one way or the other, to be honest with you. Do I feel like there are problems with it, especially going forward in a way, concerning how other people might use that? Yeah, I do. Do I feel like it was kind of necessary? I absolutely do, considering how, even though they claim to be the victims of legal weaponization, Weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI is what's going on right now. It's not rhetoric or spin, it's what's happening. It's what Kash Patel promised you would happen. He pardoned other Biden family members. He pardoned Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was the leader of the Black nationalist movement. He got arrested for mail fraud in the 20s. Everybody knows that was, a manipulation of the legal system to get somebody, somebody deemed an enemy of our government, an enemy of the people, kind of like the tax evasion charges against Capone. Couldn't get him on anything else, so we'll get him on tax evasion. The ends justify the means is generally the philosophy there, right? We don't just get him in jail, and that's what they did to Marcus Garvey. He was pardoned posthumously. He gave clemency to all nonviolent drug offenders. Not all, some, a ton, a bunch. 2,500, I apologize. 2,500 people received clemency on nonviolent drug charges. He gave clemency to 35 people on death row and a few others. Yes, Biden absolutely used the pardon power to what he saw as a furtherance of what was right. Talking about right and wrong, not maybe the proper use, but right and wrong. All right, let's get to Donnie. What's Donnie been doing with his pardoning power?
Reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley will serve lengthy prison terms for their fraud convictions. A federal judge in Atlanta sentenced Todd Chrisley to 12 years in prison yesterday, while his wife Julie got 7 years behind bars. The judge sentenced their accountant to 3 years in prison. The couple, known for their show Chrisley Knows Best, were found guilty earlier this year of defrauding banks and the IRS out of millions of dollars, all to fund a lavish lifestyle. Scotty,
what's the show? It's Chrisley Knows Best? Was that, or what was the name of the show?
Yeah, Chrisley Knows Best. I think it was on the USA Network. I caught it a few times when Monday Night Raw would end, and then it would come on real quick. But basically, it's a reality
Good cover
TV.
Up there.
It's a reality TV show that answered the question: what if a Southern super glam family with zero self-awareness spent every episode flaunting their wealth? And I would say basically it's a mix between like the Kardashians and Duck Dynasty. I mean, to sum it up,
great.
It was a bunch of rich people like doing rich people stuff, while doing tax evasion behind that.
I don't particularly need a mix of Duck Dynasty and Kardashians. By the way, the eldest Duck Dynasty member, he died. I think yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
So Duck Dynasty fans, sorry.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Well, Todd and Julie Chrisley, if they were trying to purport the image of wealthy, glamorous, high society, then they did a great job of it, because that's the section of our population that likes to commit all sorts of tax fraud, all sorts of different fraudulent activity. They got caught. They were found guilty of conspiring to defraud banks out of more than $30 million in loans, tax evasion, not paying federal taxes, wire fraud, obstruction of justice. They were convicted. Todd Chrisley got 12 years in prison. His wife, Julie Chrisley, got 7 years in prison. They both began serving their sentences in 2023. They have been pardoned. And I was talking to Scott, and I was scratching my head. Why them? And it may be as simple as Trump watched the show and liked it, right? A lot of his decisions are made on who he sees on TV. As I mentioned, 36 ex-Fox News employees now have influential roles in the Trump administration. He talks about the Terminator. He talks about... It does seem like what Don's watching on TV has a heavy influence on our lives as Americans, one way or another. And it may be as simple as he just liked the show. Or it could be more nefarious than that. I've got more. I thought I'd be done. I always underestimate how much I will talk, which is a mistake you'd think I'd learn. Nope, I've been talking too much my entire life. Ask every teacher I've ever had, and I have talked too much today. I've only got one segment left, but in that segment, I'm going to go over some more of these pardons, because some of them are scary. Some of them play to his base, and some of them are a direct message to lawmakers and more specifically the radical left liberals in this country.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
So, Biden's to me, Biden's pardons send a message. Now, the right may say that message is, I will use these powers, the powers of the presidency, in an illicit manner. I will use them in a manner that hurts America, lies to America, is deceptive. I don't agree so much with that. I feel like Biden's pardons send a message. I love my son more than I love this country, and if you're going to be in danger because I know the next administration is going to target you, I'm going to help you out now. I'm just going to get out in front of it. Is that the correct use of the powers? Maybe, maybe not. The non-violent drug offender charges, you might see that as just flat libtard nonsense. I can't really defend it that much, to be honest with you. Why them? Yes, so a lot of those sentences were unfair, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are in jail right now with unfair sentences, maybe unfair practices to get them there. Why those people? Little murky. But Trump's pardons, to me, send a much different message. Trump's pardons, in the case of Paul Wozniak, Trump's pardons, they tell me that, once again, it's a clear message that this administration is open for business. The trip to the Middle East, lying about getting $5 trillion, but actually getting $1.8 trillion in military aid, economic aid from these Middle Eastern dictators, open for business. You want to give me a $400 million jet? Open for business. I'm going to hold a crypto meme contributor party. You can get my ear for $1 million or so or up. We're open for business. And in the case of Paul Wozniak, you want to go to my $1 million a plate dinner? I'm open for business. What'd your son do? And it was his mother, by the way, who went to this dinner, $1 million a plate, to get her son out of trouble. Well, what did he do?
A report from the New York Times found that the Trump administration pardoned Paul Walsack after his mother, Elizabeth Fago, attended a $1 million per plate fundraising dinner for the president's super PAC. 3 weeks after the dinner, the president signed the pardon, getting Walsack out of an 18-month prison sentence and a $4 million restitution payment.
Walsack was just sentenced to prison days before he received that pardon from President Trump, and the judge who sentenced him said at that proceeding that he wanted to send the message that wealth is not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
And Trump sent a message right back to that judge. It absolutely is. Wealth is absolutely a get-out-of-jail-free card under my administration. Paul Walsack was he was the CEO of Palm Health Partners, a healthcare company in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I told you, today's Florida is tomorrow's America, baby. All roads lead down here. All sin leads down here. All crime leads down here. And of course, somebody that close to Donnie's home, he might get a little special treatment. Maybe they hobnob. Maybe they went to an Epstein party together, allegedly. Who knows? But Paul withheld approximately $7.4 million in employment taxes from over 600 employees and failed to remit them to the IRS. He failed to pay $3.4 million in employer-side Social Security and Medicare taxes, and used over $1 million. And this is the deal, right? Used over $1 million from his business accounts for personal luxuries, a yacht, at high-end retailers like his Cartier watch and Saks Fifth Ave, right? That's the fun one. That's the one where regular people, regular Americans, they're really assuming that you, the rich upper class, are doing crap like that. You don't make enough money, you got to steal it. You got to steal it on top for your watches and your yachts and trips to Saks Fifth Ave, right? Like that's what we perceive you're doing in the shadows, and Paul is confirming those fears for us. Approximately 10.9 million in all was defrauded from him, from the IRS by this guy. And his mother went to that $1 million dinner. And guess what? You got a pardon. So all you criminals out there, okay, anybody who robbed a bank or held a liquor store up at gunpoint or broke into a house in a neighborhood, don't worry about it. Just send your mom to a Trump $1 million dinner and you're good to go. No problems there. Oh, what? Your mom doesn't have $1 million? Oh, then you can rot in jail. Another message that Trump is sending with these pardons is the same message he sent on the campaign trail when he said he wants total immunity for police officers in the line of duty who have to shoot somebody. You end up shooting a black man in this country, in Trump's view, you should be totally indemnified. No long public trial, okay? No going to the union to pay your legal fees, costing the cities millions and millions of dollars in this cop's legal fees to defend what he felt was necessary in the line of duty. He's going back to blue. He's going to back the blue every single time because he wants the blue to back him. When the chips are down, when his back's up against the wall, he's going to want to count on law enforcement in this country to be in his corner, to go to bat for him. So in the meantime, he'll go to bat for them.
Former Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins has just been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. A jury found him guilty in December on all 12 counts connected to the bribes for badges case. The judge this morning saying Jenkins took an oath but failed, and that, quote, the jury decided you are in fact a criminal, end quote.
That is Sheriff Scott Jenkins out of Virginia, Culpeper County. He was in a fun little scheme called Cash for Badges, where he would take bribes for people who were not qualified or would never make the cut or should never be considered for any type of work in the sheriff's department. He would take bribes and he would give badge IDs, law enforcement privileges to people with no training, no experience, who did no actual work. They were just given badges. It was about $75,000 a pop. You wanted to be a sheriff? Hand this guy $75,000. He'll get you a badge, a gun, an ID, no training, no work. Don't worry about it. I got you. At least 8 people they know of got that privilege. He got sentenced to 10 years in prison. And Donnie pardoned him. Why? That's clearly a criminal. That's a criminal who is in a position of power, position of life and death, position of people's future, a position to affect people's future. We trust that our law enforcement will never be this guy, will not be this guy. And if this guy pops his head up, we will handle it. I love Serpico. You love Serpico. How can you not get behind that? If you love Serpico, this should make you sick. This should make you sick. One of those dirty cops finally got caught. 10 years. 10 years. And Donnie pardoned him. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Silk Road. Silk Road, that was a dark website you could go to get drugs, weapons, employ hackers, get counterfeit money, launder your money. You pay for it with Bitcoin, no tracking you. Ross Ulbricht, he got convicted of conspiracy to commit narcotics trafficking, conspiracy to commit computer hacking, conspiracy to commit money laundering, engaging in continual criminal enterprise, almost like a RICO, distributing narcotics over the internet, trafficking fraudulent identities, pardoned. And we got a couple minutes, so I want to get to this quick. So I don't know what message that's sending. I would imagine a man who is who is as skilled at illegally transferring money, taking money, without being able to track where he's getting his money. I figure a man like that would be uniquely positioned to get money to Donnie for that pardon. Obviously, that's allegedly. But I mean, how could it? I mean, what else? What reason would you have to pardon a drug offender? And most importantly, the reason one of the messages he's sending with these pardons is, you do violence for me, I'll pardon you. You commit offenses at a high level, I will pardon you. You commit violent offenses in my name, I will pardon you. J6 rioters had the blanket pardon. Emily Hernandez participated in the riot. She drove intoxicated after her pardon, wrong way on Interstate 44, killed a person. Shane Woods assaulted a photographer and a police officer, pardoned. Reckless homicide, aggravated DUI, killed a 35-year-old woman after his pardon. Andrew Take assaulted police officers on J6. After he was pardoned, sent sexually explicit messages to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Do not tell me these pardons are a political stunt. These pardons are having an effect on Americans' lives. People are dying. Kids are getting assaulted. To send a message, if you do these things for me, I'll pardon you. And damn the consequences to America.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.